Nvidia just invested $5 billion into Intel, which is making for some massive moves. The leaders of the world's two largest economies are set to meet tomorrow morning. The market's at all-time highs, and tomorrow is Triple Witching Day. I hope you're ready for an exciting end to the week, because tomorrow is going to be bigger than most people think.
Intel had a massive move today, closing up over 22%, and it was actually up over 34% at the high in pre-market today. Like you said in the intro, Mike, Nvidia is investing $5 billion into the battered chip maker, Intel. Now, Intel has had a lot of issues lately, right? They've been in a lot of financial situations. Their stock has been falling, and they've been stuck in the mud for a long time. But Nvidia has said that they will invest $5 billion in them, and as part of the deal, they're going to be co-developing data center and PC chips with Intel. I thought that that was great. One thing that I thought was a slight negative is that they didn't talk about using Intel's foundries at all, but nonetheless, I do think that them just having a $5 billion investment in Intel is great for them, right? We're talking about Intel, a stock that has been stuck in the mud and has been falling over the past few years. If we go to the daily chart, we can actually see just how much Intel has actually been falling recently. And Mike, like whenever I think about this, Nvidia is the biggest company in the world. If you're talking about chip stocks, Nvidia is the king. Intel used to be up there, and some people might have used to consider them the king. But, you know, things have changed as years went by. AI demand has shifted, and now Nvidia is helping spur a lot of buying pressure here.
There we go. And Tom, what's very interesting is just less than a month ago, on August 22nd, President Trump announced that the U.S. took a 10% stake in Intel, and now today, just 27 days later, Nvidia invested into them as well. You know, if you're Intel, you know, this is just about the best news that you can possibly get. I know a lot of viewers have been, you know, buying up shares of Intel for a while now, so it was very rewarding to see this mega pop today. Looking at the charts now for Intel and Nvidia, what are you seeing on your radar, and what do you take from this crazy move?
Yeah, Intel had that great run today, and they actually broke above $30, which was a huge and amazing sign for them in the short term. If we go ahead and we look at Intel over the past year and a half, we can see that they've been really stuck down in the mud. We can see there's a massive range. The overhead range pretty much was right around $26 to $26.50. The bottom of the range extended all the way down to around $18 to $18.50. And we saw multiple bounces within this range. And we finally are now seeing a good breakout back above here, and we officially now filled the gap from back in the beginning of August of 2024 past that $29 to $30 area. So this is going to be crucial for tomorrow, you know, to stay above $30. I think a lot of traders are definitely worried that we could end up seeing a bit of a pullback come in here. But even if we did, I think that it would be one of those pullbacks where we just get a multi-day pullback until we touch the next support before ultimately running higher. I feel like this is a very bullish sign for Intel. And whenever you have the government taking stakes and Nvidia at the same time, I think it just helps to spur a lot of good price action. And if we go over to Nvidia's chart, they actually had a pretty good day too, closing up 3.49%, which did help the SPY a little bit today. As we can tell, Nvidia did peak out around 177. They did get a little bit past there today. So that's going to be the main level to watch for tomorrow. And they're also trying to use the pre-market high as intraday support, right around 176. So if we start falling under 176, I'll be a little bit more worried in the short term. But I would say my favorite thing about these two charts, Mike, is definitely more of the longer term outlook on Intel here.
Sounds good. And yeah, either way, let's keep a close eye on these stocks going forward. The news is great, and it was awesome to see moves like we saw today, but the market itself also crushed it. It made new all-time highs today. Tom, you know, the market is holding up very strong after that interest rate cut. What are you seeing for key levels heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, that was a great after-hours move yesterday, and this morning we posted a new all-time high right around 665, and even right after open, we got very close to that all-time high and ended up rejecting. But I thought that the way in which SPY ended up holding around 662.50, which is actually a previous high, was really awesome to see. So that's going to be a big area of support. If we start to break under 662.50, I'll be watching for a drop more towards 661 and also 659.50 to go test a pretty big recent support. But for the most part, I'm really glad to see the SPY holding that support. And we can see at the end of the day, it touched this support 3 separate times. So if we wake up tomorrow and we start to see the SPY gapping up or at uptrends past 665 or up to it, I think we could start to look for more of a breakout opportunity. And of course, what's going to be fueling that, right? It's going to be Nvidia and some of the bigger tech stocks in the market that we're running up and helping to fuel that overall move today. So if Nvidia gets a good continuation, watch for 665 on the SPY. I will say past there, we're in uncharted territory, but the next larger level I'll be looking for is about $5 away at 670.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's very exciting. And one thing that I thought was pretty interesting that I saw today is that we are heading into the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which has an unusual effect on the stock market. So basically, the holiday starts on Monday, September 22nd, and ends on Wednesday, October 1st. And during this 9-day period that includes 7 trading days, we can see it is unusually bearish. If we look at just all 9 calendar day periods throughout, the entire year, it ends up positive as you would expect, all the way to the left, because the stock market generally rises over time. And if you look at any 9-day period between the usually weak time of the year of September and mid-October, you can see it's down, which is, you can say, expected. But even when you take that into account, this upcoming 9-day period is even worse than that. And what's especially crazy is this data goes all the way back to 1896. So that's a ton of data. We want to showcase this to everyone ahead of time, so you can take what you want from it heading into the event.
Yeah, of course, right? And obviously September and October are historically pretty bad, but again, it even beats that. So it definitely shows that it's a strange time of the year for sure. And we definitely see some statistics like this come out every once in a while that makes me scratch my head. And, some of the more funnier ones are like how if somebody wins the Super Bowl, how the stock market normally moves, right? But hey, they are fun statistics nonetheless. And I know that there's a huge event going on this week, Mike, to say the least, and that is the triple witching event. For those of you that don't know, and we've been talking about this all week, a triple witching is pretty much whenever you get expirations out of stock options, stock index futures, stock index options, all on the same day. It's called triple witching, and we can tell that, especially if we look at the 5-day period here, the market only goes green 28% of the time, and I would even say the rest of the data is pretty negative as well for the previous day, same day, and next day changes, as well as I just think a lot of traders worry about this quite a bit, and there could even be some selling pressure into the event. But obviously, we didn't really see that today. We saw the market hold up because of rate cuts, but tomorrow things could shift a little bit.
Oh, yes, they can shift, Tom. Like right now, the market is up 0.74% on the week, which is good, especially in a historical sense. But tomorrow, I think we have an event that most people are underestimating and most people might not even know is happening, and that is the Trump-Xi meeting. So the leaders of the two largest economies in the world are set to meet tomorrow, 30 minutes before open. And this is important for multiple reasons. Not only do, China-US relations have a huge impact on sentiment, but they move the market big time. And you can look at, just the market's historical moves for some very clear evidence of that. And basically, this call will be the first direct engagement between Trump and Xi, basically since June. And the future of TikTok and the tariff truce is expected to be high on the agenda for this meeting. Trump said that he might do an extension with China, but it would be an extension based on the same terms that they have right now, which he said are pretty good. We'll see what happens out of this. It can get a little bit spicy, but I definitely wanted to bring this up because I think it's going to be a lot more important than most people think.
Especially whenever we've been talking about China stocks ripping so much recently. Like we look at Baba, Baidu, PDD, even with that recent big money trade. We can look at these stocks and say, okay, there might be some short term volatility here. It sounds like the talks are generally pretty positive right now. Trump sounded pretty confident, it seemed like. And at the end of the day, if they do an extension, I think that's a lot better, right, than butting heads and finally just going through with the tariffs that could get back into triple digit levels, right? That would obviously be pretty crazy if we heard that happen once again. But I'll keep it on the radar for sure, Mike. It can move multiple different parts of the market, whether it's China stocks or even just the S&P 500. Like we've seen the market go down and have some crazy volatility regarding tariffs. If you guys remember back from April.
Right. And then, Tom, I'll also say it's not even just Chinese stocks. It's also stocks like Nvidia. It's the largest company in the world. Obviously, it's in play right now, especially with, the Intel news that it had today. But let's not forget that earlier this week, China actually banned some of Nvidia's chips. And that actually did have a meaningfully, bearish influence on Nvidia. So I also think Nvidia is worth keeping very close on the radar, because depending on how this meeting between Trump and Xi goes, we can certainly see some big moves. And while I would like to think that, they come to terms, there's also the very real possibility that they don't and things can get even worse. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. And then, Tom, too, it's also happening right before open. So it's going to make for an exciting day.
Exactly, 30 minutes before open, so be ready, guys. Like, there could be some crazy headlines, like, pretty much right at the beginning of the day. You might want to wake up a little early. I know that these events can definitely shake up the market quite a bit, and, I know that they talked about China banning the Nvidia chips earlier in the week, Mike, and whenever we think about that situation, that could have been some leverage for Xi to help use in this meeting. So it's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot of things going on both sides, but I think the tariff truce will be the most important part of it. And Mike, whenever we talk about events for tomorrow, there really isn't too much else on the radar. The economic calendar was pretty clear after today's initial jobless claims, and the earnings are pretty much nothing tomorrow, with MNY being the only one highlighted here by Earnings Whispers.
Sounds good. Well, one thing I did want to talk about, though, is the unusual collapse we're seeing with sales of heavy trucks. And this data has usually foreshadowed recessions. We can see with data going all the way back to 1979, when we have seen sales like this decrease in a meaningful way, it normally, again, indicated a future recession. And it makes sense, because if you see sales of, tractor trailers and construction vehicles and other vehicles like that plummeting, it shows at least some signs that the economy is slowing down. So take this how you want, but I definitely wanted to bring it up.
Whenever I look at the chart, something that I really like about this one is that it's not like it happens like right in line with the recession either. Like, we can see that a lot of these declines start happening a little while before the recessions actually do start coming into play. So like right now, we're starting to see a bigger decline. I think if we start to see this sell off a lot more, there could be that chance of recession coming up. And of course, a lot of people point to the weakening jobs market and other parts of the economy that Jerome Powell is trying to manage right now. And I know that's been a big topic lately. So yeah, definitely fresh in everybody's mind, but a pretty interesting stat nonetheless. And hey, if we end up hitting a recession in either 2025 or 2026, I think it'll be pretty surprising. And hey, let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think that we'll end up hitting a recession, or hey, do you think that they'll just change the definition again?
All right, well, let's get right into some setups and predictions then. And no, it's not PDD or SoFi today. I'm looking at ticker symbol CNC, and it is to the upside. This is a ticker that has had two recent big money trades, and it's a stock that has been doing pretty well over the past few weeks. But over the past few trading days, it has definitely sold off. And I think that makes for a good risk reward playing the broader uptrend here. Again, we can see since the beginning of August, the stock has been crushing it as it went from like $25 a share up to around like $36 per share. And this recent dip around 32 offers like a good risk reward, where maybe like a stop loss is set just below 31.50. Maybe if you want to give it more room, like 31.30 or so. And, if it falls past her, then the setup just loses. But in the scenarios where it continues higher, I would not be surprised to see this retest that $35 area and potentially break through that $37 to $37.85 area if we can see a meaningful continuation. Either way, CNC is on my bullish radar, and I do like how there are 2 open big money trades with it.
Yeah, and it's been on a broader uptrend since the beginning of August, and it is starting to consolidate a bit, obviously on the bottom of this dip. So I like looking at where it is right now for a possible uptrend off of this, and it also just kind of filled the gap on the daily chart too, which is usually a pretty good sign, showing some support there. But with my next setup, I'm looking at Coinbase to the upside. Coinbase is actually moving up in a pretty good way today, up 7.04% at close, and it was a lot higher than that in the middle of the day as it got towards $350. But I'm essentially going to be looking for the overall gap to fill on Coinbase's daily chart up to around 365. We can see that this is right where Coinbase started the gap down, and then they gapped down following their earnings report all the way down to around 311 and ultimately around $300 recently, where it's held up really well. And I'm really happy to see it holding $300 too. That is a major psychological level, and it did break under 300 technically by a little bit, but it held the support range nonetheless. So in the short term, I'm looking for a good continuation off of today's price action. I did think that the way in which Bitcoin actually moved up today was pretty solid, and if Bitcoin keeps moving in the way that it's doing right now, Coinbase has a pretty good shot to continue up on this overall rally. So I'll be watching Coinbase closely. Hopefully we can break above the high of day from today, just above that 350 mark.
Sounds good. Another ticker that's close on watch is ARM, but it's to the downside. They struggled today with the Nvidia and Intel news as they fell by around 4.5%. And I think that the Trump-Xi meeting also adds a little bit more risk, especially to chip stocks. ARM is definitely on my bearish radar, but this is only going to be a play if we do see a continuation, because if the Trump-Xi meeting comes out very bullish, it's hard to justify trying to, short ARM, like especially if all chip stocks are rallying. And we can see back in April when there was a lot of tariff issues and trade tensions, ARM just got killed. It fell by 50%. When it moves in an especially volatile way. Today it fell by 4.5%, and I think it's in a sensitive spot right now, especially considering while we have stocks like Nvidia that have been uptrending for a while now and are still at recent highs. ARM is a stock that has basically been at the same level since January of 2024. So either way, ARM is on my bearish radar, but I want to see a continuation lower before justifying playing this to the downside. And I think realistically, if you're looking for a level, look at that 143.50 area. And if you really wanted confirmation, you can push it down to 142.
Yeah, 142 is pretty awesome there. And whenever I look at ARM's chart, it's crazy whenever you zoom out and you just look at how flat it's been since the beginning of 2024, whenever it was starting to rip right there. So I will keep it on the radar, Mike. It definitely had a pretty bad move today. And my next stock is actually a very similar setup. And I'm looking at AMD, Advanced Money Destroyer. At least I'm calling it that because it's red today. But nonetheless, AMD had a pretty big drop in pre-market as well, but it ultimately ended up recovering back to the upside. One thing I'm watching for is as it was recovering up today, it had a little bit of intraday reaction, very close to 155 to 156. Now, if we're able to truly break back under $155, what I'll be watching for is a drop down towards the 150 low of day from today. And now that low of day technically happened right around open and in pre-market, but nonetheless, I will be watching for that support to come up. And if we go and we look at the Bookmap, that is exactly where all of the buyers are stacking up in the short term. So that's going to be a big area of support, and I do think that there's a possibility playing the 5-point move down from 155 to 150 could be a good scalp opportunity. Now, I do think that 150 could end up breaking if the news gets negative enough or if the move starts to really accelerate, but I do think that the 155 to 155 point move would be a lot safer. Nonetheless, though, it's a big spot on the chart. We can see it right here on the X-ray vision with Bookmap. There's about 250,000 shares stacked up at 150, and even at 149, there's another 72,000.
There we go. Let's keep a close eye on those levels for tomorrow. And besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have CrowdStrike, ticker symbol CRWD, to the upside.
This stock was explosive, up 12.8%. If it could end up breaking the high of day just around 506, then watch for a good continuation.
All right, with the next one, we have MP Materials, ticker symbol MP, also to the upside.
If MP can break out above 72.20, just above the high of day, then watch for it to continue up as well.
And then with the last one, we have the Trade Desk, ticker symbol TTD, but to the downside.
Yeah, they didn't get the memo today with all the other stocks going up, but if they end up falling under 43.90 just at that low of day, then watch them down. They had that weird wick down to 43.90 there right at close.
All right, so we have these 3 tickers on the radar for potential continuations tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. But besides that, let's jump right into today's $380,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol mRNA, Moderna. Today, the trader here bought the $27.50 strike call options that expire very, very soon on September 26th of 2025. So this is next week. This is a high risk, high reward trade for my advanced traders out there. This is also technically a call debit spread where they shorted the $29.50 strike call options. The trader here is risking around $380,000 to make around $1.6 million. This trade is high risk because of the expiration and strike price. That, helps partially explain why it is a little bit smaller than, especially some recent big money trades. Moderna has been holding support pretty well, especially over the past few months around like this $23.50 area. I like how it had a good move up today. I'm very excited to see how this ends up doing, given, the riskiness, you could say, of this trade. And yeah, I'm definitely very interested in this. It would be great to see it put more pressure, let's say on like $25.50, maybe $26, for a potential continuation, but very interesting.
Yeah, I love the daily setup here with Moderna, and I was actually looking at this setup earlier today whenever the big money trade actually initially came out, and it actually reminds me of Intel's overall setup. I know this is kind of funny, comparing a healthcare stock to a chip stock, but if we go and we look at Intel, it was stuck in a massive range, right? And whenever it would touch the bottom of this range, it would start to rip back to the upside. And essentially, that's exactly what Moderna looks like right now on the daily chart. Very similar. Now, it's not necessarily exactly the same, right? But it's a similar setup. There's a huge support in play, and the last few times that it touched this support, it really ripped back to the upside. I mean, we're talking actually not the most recent touch, but if we go back to the touch from May of 2025, specifically Friday, May 16th, we can see that there were actually 3 very solid green days following that touch. Now, if that ends up happening here, this short-term trade is going to be very explosive, right? I also am glad, Mike, that they did a call debit spread. They made it a little bit safer. It's not quite as risky as just naked calls, but I feel like the setup is grade A here at least. So, again, not the biggest big money trade ever, but I think that with the amount of time, it's definitely justified not to go too deep into it.
Exactly. So we shall see. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button so you can get our videos recommended to you more often. Every single day we cover big money trades, the most important news, information, economic events, SPY levels and analysis, and basically everything you need to know about the stock market every single day. It takes us multiple hours to make these videos to cover everything you need. If you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. And let's also give a massive shout out to today's member of the day, Antoine, in the Stocked Up trading floor, who had some beautiful profits today with some CrowdStrike call options. Huge shout out to you, Antoine. Keep up the great work going forward, and it is awesome to see posts like this one. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. You'll get full access to our army of custom trading bots. You get access to the big money plays that are posted every single day, but before we cover them in the nightly video, and you can also see which big money plays are moving up the most, which is very nice. You can use commands to see if the traders are still in the trades or not. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, join our weekly live events, and basically access everything you could need for short-term trading. It's the place to be, and you can save quite a bit with the first link in the description and the comments down below. Tomorrow should be a very exciting day of the week. Not only is it Triple Witching Day, not only do we have Nvidia's crazy news with Intel, but also we have that big Trump-Xi meeting. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.